The explosion ripped through the diplomatic shuttle like thunder tearing apart the sky. Princess Yaraveth felt the floor shake beneath her feet as red warning lights filled the cabin with their angry glow. She grabbed the armrest of her seat and looked around at her handmaidens, who screamed in terror. Their bioluminescent skin flickered between pale blue and frightened white as another blast struck the hull. "We are under attack," one of her guards shouted before a section of the wall burst inward and sent him flying across the room. Yaraveth was the third daughter of Emperor Calveth, ruler of the Valari people. She had traveled to the neutral diplomatic station to attend peace negotiations between 3 star systems. It was supposed to be a simple mission, a chance to prove herself useful to her father who barely noticed her existence. Now everything was falling apart around her. Armored figures poured through the breach in the hull. They were Kethrai, reptilian slavers known throughout the galaxy for kidnapping valuable hostages and demanding enormous ransoms. Their scales were dark green and their eyes glowed yellow with cruel hunger. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "Take the princess alive," their leader hissed in a voice that made Yaraveth's blood run cold. "She's worth more than this entire ship." The remaining Valari guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one they fell until none stood between Yaraveth and the slavers. A Kethrai soldier grabbed her arm with clawed fingers that dug into her delicate skin. She cried out in pain as they dragged her toward their boarding vessel. "My father will hunt you across every star system," she shouted at them, trying to sound brave even as fear squeezed her heart. The slaver captain laughed, a horrible rattling sound. "Your father will pay whatever we demand, little princess. And if he refuses, there are others who will pay well for Valari royalty." They threw her into a dark holding cell aboard their ship. The metal floor was cold and dirty. She could hear other prisoners crying in nearby cells, species from across the galaxy who had been taken from their homes and families. Yaraveth pressed the emergency beacon hidden in her bracelet, but the signal indicator stayed dark. They were jamming all communications. Her bioluminescent markings, which normally glowed a healthy violet blue, began to fade to a sickly gray. It was the physical sign of extreme stress in her species, and she could not control it no matter how hard she tried. She was alone, trapped, and helpless. Far across the sector, a cargo freighter called the Steady Horizon moved through empty space on a routine supply run. The ship was old and patched in dozens of places, but its engines were reliable and its crew was experienced. Sergeant Park Junho sat in the small galley, eating a bowl of instant ramen and reading reports on his tablet. He was 34 years old with short black hair and a scar that ran across his left eyebrow. His eyes were dark and often carried a distant look, as if he was remembering something painful from long ago. He had been Special Forces back on Earth before a mission went wrong and changed everything. Now he worked as a security contractor for shipping companies, protecting cargo that nobody else wanted to protect. It was quiet work, boring work, and that suited him fine. The ship's communication system crackled with static, and then a broken voice came through. It was a distress signal, corrupted and weak, but still recognizable. "This is diplomatic vessel under attack, Valari. Requesting immediate." The message cut off into silence. Captain Yu Mi-young, a tough woman in her 50s who had been flying cargo ships since before Junho was born, looked at the navigation console and frowned. "Signal came from about 4 hours away," she said. "Not our problem. We have a delivery schedule to keep." Junho stood up from his seat. "Captain, that was a Valari diplomatic vessel. They do not send distress calls unless something is very wrong." "And what do you expect us to do about it?" Mi-young asked. "We are a cargo ship with a crew of 6. We are not a rescue fleet." "We should at least investigate," Junho insisted. If there are survivors, we cannot just leave them. The captain shook her head. Every minute we delay costs us money, Sergeant. I am sorry for whoever is out there, but we have responsibilities. Junho walked to the communication station and began working. His fingers moved across the controls as he tried to clean up the corrupted signal and trace its origin. After several minutes, he found what he was looking for. The signal came from near the Kethri trade routes, he said quietly. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what the Kethri did to their captives. The crew members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Slavers, whispered Engineer Choi Seung-min, a young man barely 25 years old. Those poor people! Junho looked at Captain Mi-young with steady eyes. I am not asking you to fight anyone, Captain. Just get me close enough to see what happened. If there is nothing we can do, we leave. But if there is even a small chance we can help someone, we have to try. The captain was quiet for a long moment. She had known Junho for 2 years now, and she understood what drove him. He carried guilt from his past like a heavy stone around his neck, always looking for a chance to save someone the way he could not save others before. Fine, she said at last. We will take a look. But if I see even one Kethri warship, we are gone. Understood? Understood, Junho replied. 4 hours later, they arrived at the coordinates. What they found made Seung-min gasp in horror. Debris floated through space, the remains of what had once been a beautiful Valari diplomatic shuttle. Bodies drifted among the wreckage, their bioluminescent markings dark and lifeless. But there was something else. A faint energy trail leading away from the destruction, the signature of a Kethri slaver vessel. They took survivors, Junho said. They took them alive. He pulled up information on his tablet, and his expression grew grim. According to reports, Princess Yaraveth of the Valari Empire had been traveling on that shuttle. If the Kethri had captured royalty, they would be heading for their hidden base to negotiate ransom. I am going after them, Junho announced. Captain Mi-young stared at him. You cannot be serious. One man against an entire slaver crew? Humans are considered primitive by the Kethri, he explained. Their scanners often mistake us for livestock or cargo. I can get aboard without being noticed. And then what? Junho checked his weapons and supplies. And then I bring them home. He did not know who he would find on that ship. He did not know that this mission would change his life forever. All he knew was that someone needed help, and he could not look away. Not again. Never again. The stolen maintenance pod drifted silently toward the Kethri slaver vessel. Junho sat cramped inside the tiny craft, barely breathing as he watched the massive ship grow larger through the small viewport. The slaver vessel was ugly and brutal, covered in weapons and armor plating. It looked like a predator waiting to swallow him whole. His radio crackled softly. You are approaching their scanner range, Captain Mi-young warned. If they detect you, we cannot help you. Are you sure about this? Stay at safe distance, Junho replied. If I'm not back in 6 hours, leave without me. Junho, that is an order, Captain. Do not risk the crew for me. He switched off the radio and focused on his approach. The maintenance pod was designed to look like space debris, and humans gave off biological signatures that Kethri scanners often misidentified. To them, he would appear as nothing more than a piece of floating garbage carrying something resembling cattle. It was insulting, but today it would save his life. The pod attached to the hull with a soft magnetic clunk. Junho waited, counting his heartbeats, listening for alarms. None came. He cut through the outer plating with a plasma torch and squeezed into a narrow maintenance corridor. The inside of the slaver ship smelled like death and fear. The air was thick and humid, designed for Kethri comfort. Junho moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols and security systems. He had memorized the typical layout of Kethri vessels during his military days, and this one followed the standard pattern. He passed a large holding area and stopped. Cages lined the walls, filled with prisoners from a dozen different species. Some were unconscious, some were crying, and others simply stared at nothing with empty eyes. They had been broken by their captors, their hope crushed. Junho wanted to free them all, but he knew he could not. If he caused too much commotion too soon, he would fail before reaching his target. He had to be smart. He had to be patient. He pressed forward, searching for where they would keep a high-value prisoner like royalty. After 20 minutes of careful movement, he found a separate detention area guarded by 2 Kethri soldiers. This had to be the place. He waited until one guard walked away on patrol, then moved. The remaining guard never saw him coming. Junho struck fast and hard, his hand covering the reptilian mouth before it could scream. A quick twist, and the guard went limp. Junho lowered the body quietly and took the access key. The cell door slid open. Inside, Princess Yaraveth pressed herself against the far wall. Her bioluminescent markings were almost completely gray, and her large silver eyes were wide with terror. She looked fragile and exhausted, her diplomatic robes torn and dirty. When she saw Junho, she screamed, "No, stay away from me." Junho held up his hands quickly. "I am not here to hurt you. I am here to help. You are human." She gasped. Humans are Deathworlders. Monsters. Junho understood her fear. Humans had a terrifying reputation among the softer species of the galaxy. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that evolving there required incredible resilience and aggression. Many aliens believed humans were violent beasts barely capable of civilization. "Yes, I am human," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "But I am not your enemy. I heard your distress signal. I came to take you home." Yaraveth stared at him. "Why? What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want nothing from you except to see you safe." He slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a water container. He set it on the ground and slid it toward her. "You are dehydrated. Your markings are fading. Please drink." She looked at the water, then at him, then back at the water. Her thirst won over her fear. She grabbed the container and drank deeply. "Can you walk?" Junho asked. "I think so," she replied. "But there are others. My handmaidens were taken too. I saw the main holding area. Once we reach my ship, we can alert the authorities and they will send a rescue fleet. But right now, I can only carry you. We must go now." Yaraveth nodded and stood on shaking legs. Junho offered his hand and she hesitated before taking it. Her skin was cool and smooth against his rough palm. They moved through the corridors together. Junho kept her behind him, his body a shield between her and any danger. Twice they had to hide in storage rooms as Kethri patrols passed. Each time, he pressed a finger to his lips and she stayed perfectly silent. They were almost to the maintenance hatch when alarms began to wail. "The prisoner has escaped." Voices shouted in Kethri. "Find her! Find her now! Run!" Junho commanded. They sprinted through the corridor. Kethri soldiers appeared ahead of them, and Junho did not slow down. He crashed into the first guard with the force of a charging bull. The alien flew backward into his companion, and both went down. More guards came from behind. Junho turned and fired his weapon, dropping 2 of them. A third slashed at him with a blade that cut across his arm. Blood sprayed, but he did not stop. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, broke it with a savage twist, and threw the screaming Kethri into the wall. Yaraveth watched in stunned amazement. She had never seen anything like this. The human moved through violence like water flowing through rocks, unstoppable and relentless. Wounds that would cripple her species barely slowed him down. "Come on," he shouted. They reached the maintenance hatch. Junho pushed her into the pod first, then turned to face the last wave of pursuers. 3 guards rushed toward him. He met them with fists and fury. When it was over, he stood among fallen bodies, breathing hard. His arm was bleeding badly, and his ribs ached from a blow he had barely felt in the moment. But he was alive, and so was she. He climbed into the pod and sealed the hatch. The engines fired, and they launched away from the slaver ship. HFY weapons fired after them, but the steady horizon was already moving to intercept. And Captain Mi-young had not survived decades in space without learning a few tricks. As the freighter pulled them to safety, Yarveth looked at Junho. "Why?" she asked again. "You were almost killed. Why did you do this for a stranger?" Junho leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Because someone had to. She did not understand him yet. But as her bioluminescent markings slowly began to glow faint blue again, she knew that everything she had believed about humans was wrong. This Deathworlder had saved her life, and she did not even know his name. 3 days passed aboard the steady horizon as the old freighter made its way toward Velari space. Princess Yarveth slowly recovered from her ordeal. The crew had given her a small cabin, not luxurious by any standard, but clean and private. She spent the first day sleeping, her body desperately needing rest. When she finally emerged, she found a ship unlike anything she had experienced in her sheltered royal life. The crew treated her with nervous politeness at first. They bowed awkwardly and called her Your Highness with uncomfortable expressions. But as hours turned into days, the formality faded. They were simple people doing honest work, and they did not know how to maintain courtly manners for long. Junho was the strangest of them all. He never bowed. He never called her princess or highness or any title. He simply called her Yarveth, as if she were an ordinary person. "Are you not afraid of offending royalty?" she asked him on the second evening. He looked up from the wound dressing he was changing on his arm. The cut from the HFY blade was healing faster than she expected. "Should I be?" he replied. "Most species show great deference to the Velari imperial family. They fear our power and influence." Junho shrugged. "I did not rescue a title. I rescued a person. Titles do not bleed. Titles do not feel fear. You are just a person who needed help, same as anyone else." Yarveth did not know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like this. In the imperial court, she was always the third daughter, the spare, the one sent on minor diplomatic missions, while her elder sisters handled important matters. Everyone treated her position, not her. But this human saw only her. On the third day, she wandered into the small galley and found Junho cooking something that filled the air with unfamiliar smells. Steam rose from a pot of boiling liquid, and he was adding various ingredients with practiced movements. "What are you making?" she asked. "Kimchi jjigae," he answered. "It is a traditional stew from my homeland on Earth. Would you like to try some?" Yarveth had never eaten human food before. Her species consumed mostly bland nutrient preparations that provided efficient sustenance without overwhelming their sensitive systems. But curiosity won over caution. "I will try a small amount," she agreed. Junho served her a bowl. The red liquid bubbled and the smell was intense, spicy, and fermented and completely alien to her senses. She took a small sip and her eyes went wide. "This is," she gasped. "This is incredibly aggressive." Junho laughed, a genuine warm sound that surprised her. Humans like strong flavors. Our planet was harsh, so our food became harsh to match. Too much. "It is overwhelming," she admitted. but also strangely satisfying. How do you survive eating things like this? We evolved on a world that wanted to kill us, he explained, sitting down across from her. Extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, poisonous plants, natural disasters. Everything on Earth is trying to survive, and that includes the food. We learned to eat anything and adapt to everything. Yaraveth took another small sip. The heat was painful but also exciting in a way she could not explain. Is that why other species call humans Deathworlders? She asked. Because of your planet? Partly. Earth is classified as a high-danger world by galactic standards. Most intelligent species evolve on gentle planets with stable climates and abundant resources. Humans evolved through constant struggle. It made us stubborn. Stubborn enough to attack a slaver ship alone? Junho's expression changed, becoming distant and sad. I've done harder things, and failed at them. Yaraveth set down her bowl. What do you mean? For a long moment, he was silent. Then he spoke in a quiet voice. Years ago, I was Special Forces. My team was sent to rescue hostages taken by terrorists. We had bad intelligence, made wrong choices. When we finally reached the hostages, it was too late. They were already gone. Gone? Dead. All of them, including children. Yaraveth felt her heart ache at the pain in his words. That was not your fault. I was team leader. Every death was my responsibility. I left the military after that. Could not face another mission where I might fail people who needed me. He looked at her with those dark human eyes. When I heard your distress signal, I could not ignore it. I could not let someone else die because I was afraid. She reached across the table and touched his hand. Her cool fingers rested on his warm skin. You saved me, she said softly. Whatever happened before, you saved me now. That matters. His hand turned over and gently held hers. Thank you, Yaraveth. In that moment, something shifted between them. She felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the spicy stew. Her bioluminescent markings began to glow brighter, shifting from blue toward a golden hue that she could not control. Golden light meant emotional attachment. It was something Velari could not hide, a biological response to deep feelings. She quickly pulled her hand back, embarrassed. Are you all right? Junho asked, noticing the color change. Your markings are different. It is nothing, she said quickly. Just a reaction to the food. He did not look convinced, but he did not push further. That night, alarms woke the entire crew. Captain Mi-young's voice came over the speakers. We have company. Kethri's ships detected. 3 of them, closing fast. Junho rushed to the bridge with Yaraveth following. Through the viewport, they could see the slaver vessels approaching like hungry predators. They tracked us, Captain Mi-young said grimly. They want their prize back. The lead Kethri ship sent a message. Surrender the Velari female, and we will let you live. Refuse, and we will destroy you. Captain Mi-young looked at Yaraveth. Your Highness, maybe if we know. Junho stepped forward, his voice hard as steel. We do not give people to slavers. Not now. Not ever. Junho, we are 1 freighter against 3 warships. The captain protested. Then we fight as 1 freighter against 3 warships. But we do not surrender her. Yaraveth stared at him. This human, this Deathworlder, was willing to die for her. She had known him for only 3 days, but he would sacrifice everything rather than hand her over to monsters. Her markings glowed pure gold, and this time she did not try to hide it. Whatever happened next, she would face it at his side. The 3 Kethri warships circled the steady horizon like wolves surrounding wounded prey. Inside the freighter, the crew gathered in the cargo bay. There were only 6 of them, including Junho. Captain Mi-young stood with her arms crossed, face grim but determined. Engineer Choi Sung-min clutched a wrench that seemed pathetic compared to the weapons they faced. The others, pilot Kang Hae-won and cargo handlers Lim Jin-woo and Bae Soo-yeon, looked terrified but refused to back down. Junho stood before them. He knew what he was asking. He knew the odds were terrible, but he also knew something the Kethray did not. "They think we are soft," he said. "They think humans are primitive animals who will run when threatened. They have never faced people who would rather die than surrender." "We are not soldiers," Soo-yeon said quietly. "We are cargo workers." "You are human," Junho replied. "That is enough. Our ancestors survived ice ages with stone tools. They crossed oceans on wooden boats. They climbed mountains that killed everything else that tried. Humanity did not conquer Earth by being weak. We conquered it by refusing to quit." He looked at each of them in turn. "I am not ordering you to fight, but I am asking you to help me protect someone who cannot protect herself. Can you do that?" One by one they nodded. Fear remained in their eyes, but something else joined it. Pride, determination, the stubborn human spirit that had carried their species from caves to the stars. "Then let us get to work," Junho said. They had 2 hours before the Kethray would board. The slavers could have destroyed the freighter from range, but they wanted Yaraveth alive and undamaged. That meant they would come in person. That meant there was a chance. Junho organized the defense. Sung-min rigged explosive traps using engine components and fuel cells. Jin-woo and Soo-yeon created barricades from cargo containers. A1 programmed the ship's few defensive systems to cause maximum confusion. Captain Mi-young prepared emergency protocols that would make the slavers work for every meter they advanced. Yaraveth refused to hide. "Let me help," she insisted. "You are not a fighter," Junho told her. "No, but I am trained in communications and diplomacy." The Kethray use a specific frequency for tactical coordination. If I can access your communication system, I might be able to disrupt their signals. Junho considered for a moment, then nodded. "Sung-min, take her to the CUM station. Show her everything." When the Kethray ships finally docked, 40 slavers poured into the steady horizon, expecting easy prey. What they found was a nightmare. The first team walked straight into a fuel cell trap. The explosion killed 5 of them instantly and sent burning debris flying through the corridor. The second team tried a different route and ran into a barricade defended by Jin-woo and Soo-yeon with improvised weapons. The cargo handlers fought with desperate fury, swinging metal rods and firing stolen Kethray guns with untrained but determined hands. Communications between the slaver teams dissolved into chaos. Yaraveth had hacked their tactical frequency and was flooding it with interference and false commands. Groups got lost, moved to wrong positions, and fired at each other in the confusion. Junho moved through the ship like a ghost of death. He had only a pistol and a combat knife, but he used them with devastating efficiency. The Kethray were larger and stronger than him, but they were not faster. They were not smarter. And they had never fought a human who had nothing left to lose. He appeared from shadows, struck without mercy, and vanished before they could respond. Bodies fell behind him. The slavers began to panic, shouting that there must be an entire squad of humans aboard. How else could so few cause so much damage? But Junho was only one man, and even human endurance had limits. A Kethray blade caught him across the side, opening a deep wound. He killed the attacker but stumbled, leaving a trail of blood. Another slaver tackled him from behind, slamming him into a wall. His head rang and his vision blurred. "Found you, human," the slaver captain hissed, stepping forward. He was massive, the largest Kethray on the ship, covered in battle scars and decorated with trophies from previous victims. You have cost me many soldiers. I will enjoy making you suffer." Junho pulled himself up, blood dripping from his wounds. "Then come make me suffer." The captain charged. The fight was brutal. The HFY captain was an experienced warrior, trained from birth for combat. He was stronger than Junho, with thicker scales that turned aside blows that would have killed unarmored flesh. His claws raked across Junho's chest, drawing more blood. But Junho would not fall. Every time the captain knocked him down, he got back up. Every wound that should have stopped him only made him angrier. He was a product of a death world, evolved through millions of years of brutal survival. Pain was familiar. Fear was an old friend. And failure was not an option. He found an opening and drove his knife into the gap between the captain's scales. The HFY screamed and threw him across the room. Junho crashed into a wall and felt ribs crack. But the captain was wounded now, bleeding green blood from his side. They circled each other, both exhausted, both dying slowly. "Why?" the captain demanded. "Why do you fight so hard for one alien female?" Junho coughed blood and smiled. "Because that is what humans do." He attacked one last time. The captain swung, but Junho ducked under the blow and drove his knife up through the soft flesh under the reptilian jaw. The HFY captain gurgled and collapsed. Junho fell beside him, unable to move. His body had given everything it had. He could hear fighting still happening elsewhere in the ship, but it seemed far away now. Then soft hands touched his face. Golden light filled his fading vision. "Junho!" Yaraveth cried, kneeling beside him. "No, no, no. Stay with me." "Did we win?" he whispered. "The other slavers are retreating. A Valari rescue fleet just arrived. They received my distress signal. We are saved." Tears streamed down her face. "But you need healing. You are dying." She placed her hands on his chest. Her bioluminescent markings flared bright gold, brighter than they had ever been. Among the Valari, there was an ancient healing technique that shared life energy between individuals. It was intimate beyond words, performed only for family members or chosen mates. It created a bond that could never be broken. She did not hesitate. Golden light poured from her into him. His wounds began to close. His breathing steadied. Color returned to his pale face. When it was over, they were connected in a way neither fully understood. She had given him part of herself, and he had received it. The Valari commander's voice came over the communication system. "Princess Yaraveth, prepare for immediate extraction. The Emperor demands your return." She looked down at Junho, who was finally sleeping peacefully. How could she leave him now? How could she ever leave him? The imperial throne room of the Valari Empire stretched before Yaraveth like a vast ocean of light and judgment. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Thousands of nobles lined the great hall, their bioluminescent markings glowing in careful patterns that showed their status and allegiances. At the far end, upon a throne carved from a single piece of living crystal, sat Emperor Kelveth. Yaraveth walked the long path toward her father. She had changed into proper royal attire, flowing robes of silver and violet that marked her as a daughter of the imperial line. Behind her, supported by two Valari guards because he was still recovering from his wounds, walked Junho. The nobles whispered as they passed. A human in the throne room. A Deathworlder standing before the Emperor. Such a thing had never happened in the 1,000-year history of the Valari Empire. Emperor Kelveth raised one hand and silence fell instantly. "Daughter," he spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are pleased to see you return safely. When we received word of the attack on your convoy, we feared the worst." Yaraveth bowed deeply. "Father, I am grateful for your concern. I would not have survived without the courage of those who rescued me. The Emperor's ancient eyes moved to Junho. Yes, the human. We have received reports of what transpired. One man, alone against an entire slaver vessel. It seems the stories about your species are not exaggerations. I did only what was necessary, Your Majesty, Junho replied, his voice steady despite his injuries. Necessary? A noble from the crowd spoke up. He killed dozens of Kethrai. He turned their own weapons against them. This creature is a monster pretending to be civilized. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Many Valari feared humans, saw them as dangerous beasts that should be kept far from civilized space. The fact that one now stood in their most sacred hall offended their sensibilities. He is no monster. Yaraveth stepped forward. He is the bravest soul I have ever known. He risked everything to save a stranger. He fought against impossible odds, not for reward or glory, but because he believed it was right. How many among you would do the same? Silence. I watched him face death without hesitation. She continued. I watched his crew, simple cargo workers with no combat training, stand against professional slavers because they refused to surrender an innocent. That is not the behavior of monsters. That is the behavior of heroes. The Emperor studied his daughter. He had seen her glow many times before, but never like this. Her markings burned with golden light that seemed to illuminate the entire throne room. He recognized that light. It was the same light his beloved wife had shone for him before she passed into the eternal stars. You have feelings for this human, he stated. Yaraveth did not deny it. I do, father. The nobles erupted in shocked outrage. A princess of the Valari Empire in love with a human? It was scandalous. Unthinkable. Some demanded Junho be expelled immediately. Others called for Yaraveth to be confined until she recovered from whatever madness had infected her. The Emperor silenced them with a gesture. Human, he addressed Junho directly. We offer you a reward for saving our daughter. Name your price. Wealth beyond imagination? Territory in our systems? Advanced technology? Whatever you desire, it shall be yours. Junho shook his head. I do not want payment for doing what was right. You refuse the gratitude of the Valari Empire? I refuse to profit from kindness. I rescued your daughter because she needed help, not because I expected to gain from it. If I took payment now, it would make the act meaningless. The nobles fell silent again, but this time in confusion rather than anger. Their entire culture was built on transactions and exchanges. The idea of pure selfless action without expectation of return was alien to them. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. You are a strange creature, human. Perhaps that is why my daughter finds you so fascinating. He rose from his seat, a rare honor that made every noble in the room hold their breath. For centuries, we have kept humans at a distance. We feared your violence, your unpredictability, your relentless nature. But perhaps we have been mistaken. Perhaps the qualities that make you dangerous also make you valuable allies. He descended the steps toward Junho and Yaraveth. Our daughter has always been overlooked in matters of state. Third in line, never expected to rule, used only for minor diplomatic functions. Perhaps it is time for her to serve a greater purpose. Yaraveth's heart raced. Father, we hereby create a new position within the imperial court, ambassador to humanity. This ambassador will build bridges between our peoples, foster understanding, and create the foundation for alliance. It is a role that will require someone who truly understands both species. He looked at his daughter with something Yaraveth had rarely seen from him, pride. We can think of no one better suited than our third daughter, who has seen human nature with her own eyes. Yaraveth felt tears forming. You would allow this? Even though you love a human? The Emperor almost smiled. "We are old, daughter, but we are not blind. The galaxy is changing. New threats emerge every decade. If humanity can be our friend instead of our fear, it may be the greatest achievement of our reign." He turned to Junho. "And you, human, will you stand beside our daughter in this task? Will you help her show our people that humans are more than the stories we tell about them?" Junho looked at Yaraveth. Her golden glow wrapped around them both, warm and gentle and full of hope. He had spent years running from his past, carrying guilt that weighed him down like chains. But standing here, in this moment, he felt those chains finally breaking. "I will," he said simply. Yaraveth took his hand. Her cool fingers intertwined with his warm ones. Two species connected by something stronger than biology or politics. 6 months later, they stood together at the signing of the first Human-Volari Alliance Treaty. Representatives from both civilizations filled the Great Hall. Cameras broadcast the moment across 100 star systems. History was being made. Junho wore a formal uniform that felt strange after years in military gear and cargo ship clothes. Yaraveth wore robes of gold and silver that marked her new status. Her bioluminescent markings glowed with that same warm golden light. "Nervous?" she whispered. "Terrified," he admitted. "But I have faced worse." She squeezed his hand. "Together?" He smiled, the expression softening his scarred face. "Together." The treaty was signed. Applause erupted. A new era began. Somewhere in the crowd, Captain Mi-Yung wiped a tear from her eye. Sun-Min cheered loudly. The crew of the Steady Horizon had been given seats of honor, recognized as the unlikely heroes who had made this day possible. As Junho and Yaraveth waved to the crowd, a reporter called out, "Ambassador, what message do you have for the galaxy?" Yaraveth looked at the human beside her, the man who had charged into darkness to save a stranger and emerged carrying hope. "Never underestimate kindness," she announced, "and never underestimate humanity." The galaxy watched, uncertain but hopeful. The future had begun.